Hi guys, thank you for joining me for today's tutorial on how to paint a mushroom using watercolors. If you guys don't mind hitting the like button below, that helps the YouTube algorithm and I really appreciate it. For a full list of what you need to get started, check out the video description. I have all of my favorite supplies down there. All right, so let's get straight into it. If you want to find a reference photo online of a mushroom, that can help you out, or you can follow along with the one I'm doing. I'm going to start by sketching it out. So we're going to do a fairly basic mushroom shape. I'm going to draw mine a little bit darker just so that you guys can see it, but I recommend trying to draw it as light as you possibly can. That helps it when you go over it with watercolors. That'll help it not show up as much. So I drew sort of a dome shape with a small sort of nodule on top, and then we're going to draw a circle shape that comes up, and this is for the underneath of the mushroom. And we'll have it come around, but to start things off, I'm just going to draw a full oval. And I'll erase some of these parts after, but draw a full oval and then have the top come around behind. Same with down here, the top comes around behind. And now we're going to draw the stem, which is going to go about 3/4 of the way up or so. It's going to come out here and come down below. We're keeping this a fairly basic mushroom shape. We're just going to do one for the sake of this tutorial, but if you want to do a few mushrooms, you can certainly do a mix of small and large. I'm going to make my mushroom a mix of teals and blues, but feel free to make yours whatever color you want. All right, so first things first, I'm going to get the top done. I like to work in sort of a line so that my hand never goes through the wet watercolor. You'll see that in a lot of my videos. I'm always sort of bouncing around the page, and that helps me avoid letting my hand rest on wet watercolors, because that's something you always want to avoid, is the smudging. So first things first, I'm going to use my dagger brush and I'm going to fill in the whole top of the mushroom with clear water. Now, a lot of people ask me how much clear water to put down, and there's no specific answer or way to describe it perfectly, but I will say that you're trying to create a sheen and not bubbles of water. So you don't want big sort of domed water on your page. That's going to cause a lot of warping with your paper, and it's also just not necessary. So if you get water where you don't want it, like I did right here, you can just take a paper towel. I always keep some close at hand, or a rag if you have it, and just dab it up. So once I get it everywhere I want, I can take the teal, and because I want my mushroom to be darker on top, I'm going to take the teal and drop it in on top. I love this teal color, but certainly whatever sort of teal you have on hand would work as well. Then I'm going to put a little bit of a lighter teal down below. We're going to work in 2 layers for this mushroom, so it's not important to get it as dark as you need it to be on the first layer, because we'll go back and add some more. But we want the top to be quite bright. And then I'm going to take a little bit of lime green. I'm going to drop that in the top, and that's going to blend with the teal and create sort of a darker green. So it's not quite as bright because it's blending. I'm going to do the same thing around the bottom just to add a little bit of dimension. Make the teal a little bit more interesting because it's mixing with another color. All right. So once you've sort of moved that around a bit, that's about all you want for the top. And we will move on to the stem. Now we can't do this area just yet, just because if I touch the top of the mushroom, it's going to potentially bleed in. So just to be out of abundance of caution, I'm actually going to do the stem now. So the stem is fairly basic. We're just going to do clear water. And feel free to pause the video at any time if you're having trouble keeping up. I do work fairly fast, but that's the beauty of the tutorials, is you can pause it anytime. All right, so now I'm going to take some Prussian blue, any dark blue will do, and I'll fill that in with the stem. So just kind of going along the stem. I'm keeping the line on the stem actually a little bit jagged because this mushroom doesn't have a perfectly smooth stem. And then towards the bottom where it meets the soil, I'm just going to add a little bit more, and we'll come in and do the grass after. But hopefully you get the idea. You're just wanting to fill in some of that water and allow it to bleed in. All right, so now this is drying quite a bit. This is a good time to actually add a little bit more color to it because it's not completely dry. So we can go in, and I'm going to take a bit of Prussian blue, and I'm going to add that to the top because I'm really wanting to darken this top of this mushroom. This part is catching the sun, so we're going to keep it fairly light. But the top, when you add that Prussian blue in, it darkens it a little different than if you were to add, say, black to it. So now it looks like dark green versus adding the black. It would almost dull the colors a little bit. So then I'm going to go around and I'm going to actually lighten it up with a bit more green. So I'm going to add a bit of green here. And then take a little bit of teal. Add a bit more teal. So I'm not adding any in the center. That's where the shine marks are. So we're keeping that part as bright white as we can. But it looks quite natural because it's not, I didn't leave a thick white line where there was no water. It just naturally didn't pool there. And if you find that your watercolor is pooling there, what you can do is take a paper towel and just dab up the part where you want it to have a little bit of a highlight. And it just looks a little bit more natural than, like I said, if you leave it empty. So we're gonna allow this to dry, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to do the center. All right, so now that that is all dry, there's a few wet spots, but they're not anywhere near the center. We can go in and add the middle part underneath of the mushroom. So for this, we're gonna do a mix of teal and the Prussian blue. I'll show you what I mean in a sec. And for this, we're just trying to get a wash down at first. We're not trying to get all the detail in. We'll add a little bit of the detail towards the end. But this is just about getting a wash down. And what I mean by that is just a base layer of paint. So we're gonna use the Prussian blue, and where it's darkest behind the mushroom, that's where we're gonna add more blue. And same with back here. I'll just let that bleed in and do its thing. And then I'm gonna take some teal. And I'm not gonna add any green for this, so I'm gonna try and make it look a little bit different color than, say, the top. It's a fairly matching mushroom. I'm not doing it as rainbow as some of my other pieces. I'm gonna take a bit of Prussian blue again and just really try and define that stem a little bit more. All right, so we're gonna let that dry now, and that way we can do the second coat on the top. All right, so now's a good time to go back to the top and add some more color just so that we can get a bit more contrast. So we're gonna go over once again with all clear water. Same as the first coat, you just want to cover it up, not have a bubbling of water, but just like a clear coat over top. And then I'm going to take some teal, I'm just going to drop that in, and maybe a little bit of the Prussian blue around the outside. I'm going to have it be a little bit darker down here. Oops. Sometimes I paint where I don't want to, but I'm just going to roll with it. And I'm going to do a little bit of dark up here again. And we'll have the dark come around here. And you'll see that there's a thick line here, and you don't want that. But sometimes that happens if the paint is drying, or sorry, the water's drying faster, then you can work with it. So all I do is take clear water and add the clear water in and butt it up to that line. And then it'll blend in. So that's pretty much all I want to do for the top of the mushroom. And then we'll go in with white paint and add some little spots on it, but that's where I sort of wanted it to end up. And then now I'm going to add some details on the bottom. So using the tip of my brush or a fine liner brush, I'm just going to go in and add some lines of varying thickness. And we're not wanting to add a ton of detail here. We're just sort of insinuating that there's texture underneath. So no need to spend a lot of time on it. You can spin your paper around And just keep working your way around, and it goes thicker at the wider part of the mushroom, and then it goes narrower when it gets towards the stem. So that's all I'm trying to do. And then I'm going to redefine the edge of the stem a little bit and add a little bit of texture going down. Just some little dots and texture. And then using the Prussian blue, I'm gonna go and outline the back again. Sometimes with watercolor, it's just about adding layer over layer and not so much about getting it right the first time. So there's a bit of freedom in that if you make a mistake, you're gonna probably come back to it again. If you find it's not dark enough, it's very rare to get at the exact darkness you want on the first try, so don't sweat it. So I'm just darkening that a bit because once again, I noticed that it dried lighter than I'd like. And then what I'm gonna do is just add a few little shoots of grass at the bottom. Just using a green that I have on hand. Nothing too detailed here. And then a little bit of the bright green. That should be good for that. Now I'm going to add some splatters over top. So the top is still a little bit wet, so that's a good time to come in and add some splatters here. And maybe some green ones down below. Just have fun with it. It's just supposed to be a cute little whimsical painting. And like I said, you can use any colors you want. So if you made your painting yellow or your mushroom yellow, have fun with it. Add some yellow. You can even add yellow if you don't have it in your painting. And we're going to let this dry right away so that we can then go in and add some little details using the white. So I'm happy with that. Maybe just add a bit more clear over here. Sometimes I add clear water over top of my droplets so that some of them change sizes. So what happens if they're still wet? The clear water will help them bleed a little bit. So I'm going to leave that now. We're going to let it dry and I'll show you what to do on the last and final. Okay, so the main part of the mushroom has dried, so I'm going to go ahead and take my liner brush and use some white paint. And really any paint you have on hand is fine. I have a poster color paint, but even just a white acrylic would work fine. And I'm just going to go ahead and add some little spots on the mushroom. And the reference photo I'm using has quite a bit of spots on it, but I'm probably not going to add quite so many. And just have them go around wherever you like. Varying sizes. And you have to be completely dry to do this part. It can't be wet or else the white will just bleed everywhere. And then we're going to go like this and just line out underneath. I'm just adding some fun little details. How many details you want is totally up to you. This is a fairly beginner-friendly workshop, so I'm keeping it nice and simple. But if you want to keep layering and layering, absolutely. The more layers you add, the more realistic it's going to end up turning out. Sometimes with my more complex paintings, I'll do 5 or 6 layers. It just sort of depends. And I'm going to just fix this little area where I accidentally painted in, and then I'm going to go and make this line a little bit wavy. I don't like that it's a straight line. And then I'm going to add a few little textured parts on the stem. And then using my fine brush, I'm going to take some dark blue and add a few spots using that. So all the mushrooms are going to be so unique. So this one has quite a lot of spots on it, but some mushrooms have none. It's totally up to you. So that's all I'm going to do on this guy for today. I'm just going to go ahead and sign it. And if you want to hit the subscribe button, I do videos like this every week. I do ones just for kids as well. If you have any suggestions of what you want me to paint next, just leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching.